Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Love of Business podcast at PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. My name is Miko Faith, and I will be your host today. It is my pleasure to introduce Desiree Williams from Blank Tag Consulting. Thank you for coming on our show today.
You are more than welcome, and it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Desiree, you are a speaker, mentor, coach, and consultant, changing others' mindsets for success.
Yes.
And your company is called Blank Tag Consulting.
Yes, it is. Yes, I got into consulting. I was in construction for almost 20 years as a project manager in construction. And as I journeyed through my career as a project manager, my key point was, how do I train somebody to be like me or to think like me as a project manager? Because I have an assistant. I need my assistant to be on top of, what they need to do. And I also need multiple teams. I'm working with multiple teams, and everybody has a different mindset. You have to speak to people differently. You have to give them direction differently. Everybody has a different pulse. So I trigger, you could say, to get deeper into the mindset and wonder why. And then why are some project managers very good and some project managers not as good? So after the pandemic, I decided, that was where my love was, and my passion is more of helping people and helping them understand the mindset, helping them understand how to basically, how everybody say, get out your own way. So it's not just saying get out your own way. For me, I'm always asking, well, what does that mean? I'm always asking that question. When somebody says anything, it's like, well, what does that mean? Go deeper. And I'm always going deeper into conversations because I want that deeper understanding. I just crave that. I don't want the surface, analogy or surface definition of it. I really want to understand what you're saying. And that's why I got into being a mindful coach, doing personal development, self-awareness, and also mindfulness. Because those are the key areas for me. Speaking in construction terms, that's the foundation to even build anything in your life, whether personally and professionally. You need a stable foundation, which starts with self.
Right. So tell me how, I'm sorry, do you hear an echo? Because I feel like I hear an echo.
I don't.
No? Okay, we're good then. So how do you help people with their mindset?
Basically,
help us go deeper.
Go deeper, right? Then I love to. Self-awareness is the key, right? If you have no awareness of self, and I've learned through mentoring, coaching, consulting, and even as a project manager, a lot of people don't know who they are. So because you don't know who you are, a lot of the things that you're doing is engineered habits that you've acquired from multiple people around you your entire life. So you're reacting off of what your habits are versus responding through what you want and what is in alignment for you. So self-awareness is always the key point and starter point. Getting in there to know yourself, doing the work to know yourself. I have books and training and different, tidbits that people can do to start to learn who they are, what they want, and then be accountable. And also very, stand your ground on who you are and what you want. Don't allow somebody to talk you out of what you want, or out of that good idea, or out of whatever it is you're thinking. Stand your ground and stand firm to that and go for it. Because if you don't, nobody else is, or you're going to be held back for the rest of your life and unhappy. And then later on in life, you have all these regrets, which, we shouldn't have regrets. We should have revolutions. We should have revolutionary moments. We should have celebratory moments. And that comes with knowing who you are and starting with self-awareness.
Right. And with self-awareness, what are your thoughts on, these sayings that we have, like, don't listen to your emotions, take the feeling out of it. Like, how does that coincide with getting to know yourself?
That's counterproductive to know yourself, because feelings and emotion, that is your connection to your spiritual side. And spiritually, you need to feel the energies that are moving, because your spirit, the energies that are moving around the universe, it doesn't know English. It doesn't know language. It knows vibrations. So the only way you can understand vibrations is by how you feel. And then you can get closer to your intuition and your instincts through your feeling, because you feel the energies, you feel connected to a higher source that guides you in the direction that you need to go. But you can't get there if you disconnect your emotions and feelings from it. You can't even stop your emotions, because once a chemical, and there are multiple chemicals in your brain and your neurons that are released into your neurons, and they're going to produce the outcome of an emotion. And so you can't stop it, right? So for people to say, just ignore them, put them to the side and let that go, that's losing like a third of yourself right there. So that is definitely not self-awareness. It's the opposite of self-awareness. It's no awareness at all. Just be a zombie and move, in this socially engineered way and through life. And you don't want that, because that's not happy. That doesn't make anybody happy. That doesn't feel good. You're not accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish. And as co-creators in this world, we have that innate ability to want to create and to move forward and to be successful and to be amazing. And that takes all of that away.
Right. I'm so glad that you shared that, because that's one of the things that through, in business, you hear sometimes, or sales, and people make those comments like, just take the emotion out of it. And I'm so glad to hear that that's counterproductive, because I completely agree.
The biggest thing, being a leader, as long as I have, when you're a project manager, you're on the leadership side, right? So you have your team. Being a leader, and they want leaders to be empathetic. Why would you take emotion out of it when emotion is how you understand and have the connection to be empathetic and not sympathetic to what's going on to people? That's how you understand, is through your emotions. And when you're able to feel the other person's emotions, like I do, I can feel, when people are in good moods, bad moods, something's bothering them, I feel that. And because I feel that, I'm looking like, well, how can you be a good leader, a great leader, an amazing leader, if you're not feeling anything? If you shelf your feelings, what are you using? Knowledge? Everybody has that, but we're all knowledgeable on different levels. We all can go to school and we all understand. And I get this, that people say, well, they have to have a certification. What certification do you have? There's a lot of jobs that even a certification doesn't give you the qualification, because you don't have the experience. Experience is the qualifier. I can go to school and learn a lot of words and terminology. And trust me, I've done that with construction. I was in construction, got my degree as a project manager, but it's in science side of it. But I was a building inspector. And that was the foundation of my degree, was a building inspector. So I had to learn all the codes and learn all that. So I know all these codes. I have all these terminologies in my head. And if you ever seen a construction code book, one book is this thick, and that's just for plumbing. And then you have electrical, and you have, everything else. You have the building, you have fire. So having all of those codes and trying to learn all that terminology, majority of it falls by the wayside because you don't use it all the time. Right. So then you start putting things in layman's terms. And on that note, now you're putting it in your own understanding and perception. You're taking it away from school. And now you went into your own perception to regurgitate some information that you do or do not understand completely. Mm-hmm. So I tell people, give me experience over a certification, because experience is the best teacher. Because even as a project manager, I learned a lot. I graduated with high honors on the dean's list. Amazing. But then I go to the field and it's not the same. The terminology changes, because now you're in the field, they have their own field terminology. You know what I'm saying? So you have to relearn terminology, and during your experience, and going through the experience is the only way that you can actually have stories to tell other people that they can identify with, to connect it, to understand it for themselves.
Right. And feeling and emotion are completely part of the full experience.
Definitely.
Otherwise, we're just suppressing a very intelligent, rich part of the experience.
Right. Because if you can't feel what you're going through, it's a disconnect. So you're only getting part of the lesson. When you go to school, you're in school to memorize. So you turn off feeling. You don't need emotion to memorize anything. You just need to know what you need to memorize. But when you're going through experience, you have to turn that emotion on. You have to turn that on because you have to be more sensitive to what's going on around you and feeling it. A lot of my projects, I finished on time, under budget. I smashed a lot of the goals that my owners and companies had for me. And they always ask me, how do you do that? Like, how are you so successful with this? And the one thing I could tell them is because I understand who I'm working with. I feel them. I connect with them and be empathetic with them. I allow them into a part of my life, not all of my life, but just enough for them to feel comfortable and be loyal to me. And I want to know a part of their life so I can be comfortable and loyal with them as well. And we have a mutual win-win situation as far as your team. So when you're building your team, you need that feeling. You need to have that emotion because that's your connection to find out if this person is going to be right for you. The paperwork in black and white is not going to tell you if this person is right. We're all engineered to give you the right answer to all these interview questions. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want that. I want you to come from your emotion and experience and tell me about you.
Right. I'm so impressed with your experience in construction, and what you're talking about, the codes, reminds me of this book I read called The Checklist Manifesto. And it's written by a surgeon, and he learned a lot from his friend in construction about how detail oriented you have to be, and the communication between all the different aspects of construction work. So can you tell us a little bit about that, like the communication and the flow? Has that translated into your consulting business?
Construction communication is a lot. Just think of 7 people talking to you all at the same time, and you have to understand all 7 people and be able to deliver to all 7 people at the exact same time. And, a lot of people are like, that's impossible. It's not impossible, but you do have to train. You can train your brain to do anything, right? Yeah. So it's just a matter of training your brain, but the communication aspect of it, you have to communicate on the pre-construction. There's phases of construction. There's communication on all phases of the construction. And then you have to communicate with different people on every single phase of the construction. So you have so much information in your head that is only in your head that you walk away with, right? But I always tell like business owners and business clients that if you allow that communication with that person to walk away, they're taking a part of your system with them. Not as far as going to work for somebody else, but now you have a breakdown in your system. And I've seen many, many businesses where the communication breakdown starts to deteriorate the business itself. And the bottom line, your EBITDA is not going to get the numbers that you want for that goal for that year because of the fact that you have a breakdown somewhere. And you have a business archetype, you have a personal archetype. There's 2 different archetypes, personally as a person, as an individual, and then you have business archetypes. And because we don't communicate correctly, especially in an interview, because we always ask the exact same questions and we want to know, do you know the job? Do you understand the job? Yeah, we can get that. I could even train you on the job, but I can't train you overnight or within a month to think like I need you to think as a communicator, as a project manager. And that is essential because your communication is off. That project is not going to come out right. Then you're going to be over budget, past your deadline, and then coming to where you got to pay, that extra money because for every single day that your project is late. So communication is so detrimental in construction. So for me as a consultant and a coach, when I'm working with different organizations, training their leadership team, I have to communicate between my client and communicate between their team. And I have to make sure that their communication is not only clear, but it's accurate. And a lot of times, if it's not, then you basically, when you're communicating with someone, they're already drawing an image in their mind of what you're talking about. they're already coming to a synopsis and an endpoint to what you're talking about. If your communication isn't clear enough and direct enough and have the right information in it or too much detail, it's going to skew the vision of the person you're speaking with. So if you think about it like that, like, how do I paint this picture with my words without saying too much? Because less is more. The less, you say less, but you draw this bigger picture. And you want to make that picture come to life in their mind. And as a project manager in construction, I see the building before it's built. So that's because of the communication that I have with the paperwork. You know what I'm saying? You have to communicate with your paperwork. You have to communicate with that blueprint. You have to communicate with things that are not human. And then you communicate with humans to make sure that this communication that you got off of paper is reiterated to your team correctly, so they know exactly what the client who you spoke to, but they know what the client wants. So for me, I like to get with the business owners or CEOs or presidents or VPs or whoever's in charge of that leadership team. I like to spend a couple of days with them so I can understand how they communicate and their delivery in communication. Because as I'm training your team, I don't want to communicate like I communicate. They get used to that. I want to communicate how you communicate. So then the verbiage and the communication is all in alignment when I'm gone, because they need to hear you. And people don't understand that you have tones coming out of your voice as you're speaking in your communication. So those tones are, creating different neurons to react in a certain way, which is why they use NLP, the neuro linguistics programming. And you use certain words to trigger your neurons to respond, react, or just take notice. Hey, this is what I need to listen to. I need to get this information. You just have to learn how to communicate correctly. And then learning how, as a coach, I learned how to communicate correctly, but I took it a step further, and I want to not only learn how to communicate correctly, but I need to learn how to mimic someone's communication style. So as I'm training your teams, this message is still coming from you through me to them. So when I'm gone out of the equation, that connection is still there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Great stuff. I wanted to ask you for your thoughts also on the difference between empathy and sympathy, because I think that's a very important distinction to make in really connecting with people deeply.
Right. Basically, being sympathetic, you're drawing in all of the emotions. A lot of times empaths can have a tendency to be more sympathetic than empathetic, even though they say empath and you would think empathetic, but they're actually more sympathetic because they care a lot and they feel your pain. And the only thing they want to do is fix it. So when you're getting to the point to where you're sympathetic, you're kind of crossing the border. And you know how they say, teach people how to fish versus giving them the fish. Sympathetic is like giving you the fish. You're not learning anything. You're coddling your emotions. You're coddling that conversation, being sympathetic. So you're not allowing that person really to fix their own problem. You're trying to fix it for them, if that makes sense. Being empathetic, you are understanding of the situation. However, you're not ready to cry with them and hold them and coddle them. You're like, okay, I understand your situation. So now you're going into leadership mode, forming questions to help trigger their mindset in those neurons so they can think for themselves and fix their situation and move on, because then they have a lot more respect for you being empathetic, but no respect being sympathetic. So people who are sympathetic usually get used because it's easy to come to you just to get the fish and I'm on my way, and there's no respect factor there. But empathetic, empathizing with people, you're able to draw a connection where they like, you know what, they really helped me, because you helped them on the understanding to not get in that situation again, versus being sympathetic, coddling it, and then allowing them to be a victim and not correcting the situation to them, but allowing them to learn more about that situation to not get in it again. And then you want to be able to be empathetic so they could pass that information forward to help more people, versus being sympathetic and giving people crutches to lean on versus their own understanding and growing, because you can't grow into self-awareness if you're being around a lot of people who are sympathetic and not empathetic to your concern. They understand you, connect, But I don't have to dive into your emotions and start crying with you. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
yeah.
Powerful stuff. I completely agree, and I've never heard it explained quite like that, so I'm really glad I asked.
You're welcome. And trust me, you probably ask me again in a month, it is probably going to come out a little different, because as we learn more and understand and get a deeper understanding of self and the things around us, that conversation comes out a little different every time because you're growing. So people who are constantly growing always look for that. You won't have those engineered responses. So it's the same every single time. And I tell people, if it's the same every single time, what's new? Did you grow? Did the information not change? Like, information is constantly changing. People are constantly growing. So your delivery should be slightly different every time. It shouldn't be the same if you're in motion.
Right.
And besides, I like to explain things on multiple different ways, because the way I explained it, you appreciate it and love it, but the next person might go over their head and they don't understand what I just said. So being able to say it in multiple different ways, one, lets you know that that person knows the information, or I do know what I'm speaking about. One, two, you're able to connect to multiple people, being able to say it different ways because you want to connect to as many people as possible, because you want them to get the information and understanding. Well, for me.
Right. Yeah. I circle too. I keep circling back over the points, and I feel like that's a natural way to be thorough.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Our brain, it has its own ability to connect the dots per se. And everybody's dots don't connect the same way, because it depends on which picture you have as far as your value system goes. Everybody has a value system, and your value system controls the habits that you're going to have. They're actually built off of the habits that you have. So you have your value system, but they're going to control every decision that you make. Everything that you say, every choice that you make, your values control that. That's the driving force for your decisions. So the only way you change your values, right, is say I have some employees and their outcome, their results are just slightly off. And maybe because of how they value certain things in their life, that it's pushing what they need to know lower on that list of their values. So they're not as engaged, they're not as into it. It doesn't really matter as much. A lot of people go to work just so they can pay their bills. That's their end result. I just want to pay my bills. I don't like my job. I hate coming to work every day. Okay, but what can I do to make you like it? Like, what would be your ideal job? Helping people understand that goes into communication, emotions, being empathetic, helping people understand what they truly like, and then finding a job, because there's multiple jobs out there that they can go to and they'll enjoy the job. I mean, when you have employees that enjoy the job, your bottom dollar will increase, the productivity increases, which is why. And then you also have a team that is cohesive and coherent with each other, and they communicate very well. Because a lot of the communication with teams, and what I did as a project manager, a lot of my communications was nonverbal. People think communication is speaking with each other, having a dialogue. But there's so much more to communication, just dialogue. There's body language, there's energy, and I could feel your energy. I'm looking at your body language. I'm hearing what you're saying. And as a leader, you take all three of those into consideration to form what the message is coming from the other person, from your teammates. And everybody is going to be different, because everybody's values are different. Everybody's, fears, worries, and doubts are different. Everybody's goals are different. So a lot of the times that I work with businesses, I want your employees, your team members, to do two plans. One plan is a personal plan, a personal development plan. The second plan is a professional development plan. So taking a personal development plan, now you're getting intimate with that person's life, or what they see for their life and their vision. The personal development plan sees their part in your business on what they need to accomplish and do for the overall structure of your company. You take the two and you marry them together as a leader, and I look at them so I can assess that they're in the right place, they're the right fit, and also they're in the right, journey. They're on the right journey, so they can make themselves happy, as well as, career happy and home happy. And once you connect to people at home and you can make their home happy because you care, you're empathetic. So that's an empathetic move right there. And it's really simple. Like, that's empathetic. Like, okay, I want to know your personal goals. That's an empathetic move. That's not sympathy. That's empathy. It's empathy.
Yeah.
And that's something that doesn't even have a lot of conversation. It's a document. You give them this. I have the document for the plans. You give them this document, this list of, questions that they need to answer, and they go through there. And then at the end, they start putting all those questions together because it's helping them think, and they put it together in a plan for their life. Right. And you do the same thing personally, professionally, and then you take both of those and then you marry them together for a complete cohesive plan for this individual to prosper with your company. And once they, move on, or they, promote up, they become entrepreneurs. They're going to do something either within your company or someone's company or within their own. And that comes from, like, the first thing they'll say is, I had this teacher, I had this really cool boss. I remember they taught me this and this. They remember you. They not only remember you, but they're going to they're still going to, support your business. They're going to tell people about your business. They're going to tell people how great you are and all the things that you learned. They're going to tell people, go work for them. They're telling all the people they connect with. So if they're a good employee, they're going to tell more good employees to come and connect with you. They're not going to tell the bad employees. They're going to tell the good people to come and connect with you. So a lot of the work, that's what I use while, as a project manager. So a lot of my work on and putting my team together, whether it was subcontractors, vendors, or even if it was just laborers that I needed to just go and grab for whatever portion of the job that I needed, that conversation and that mindset that I used when I did that, I killed it in construction because of the teams that I built in construction. It wasn't me. And like I told them, I'm not your boss. I am another part of the team, and I just have my role. And that alone right there is an empathetic move, because now they're saying, you know what, they're not better than me. I'm not looking at them, because people are going to come with what they perceive you to be. I have a very strong voice and a very strong presence. So I have to communicate very well, because I don't want people running from me. I need them running to me, because I need a team, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm like 5'3". I'm a little woman. I tell people I'm a small person, but I have a whole big personality and a big conversation for you. So that's not there. It's not, I'm not, low on a lower totem pole. I'm actually up there. So I gained a lot of respect from men. You're talking about a woman, not only a woman, but a minority woman in a male dominant field.
Yeah.
It's like 20 years ago. Now it's like, yes, women in construction, and they've been pushing it over the last 5 years or so. Yeah, it's all great. I was in that before that was even accepted, so that was the struggle. And it was like, okay, now I'm in a male dominant field. I'm not even accepted, not even just as a woman, but I'm a minority woman. So it's even less respect. How do I connect to these men and these teams so I can still get my job done?
Right. Super important questions. I think we're out of time, but it's been such a pleasure to hear from you and to get insight on mindset change, empathy, sympathy. Where can people find you and more of your awesome work?
You can find me at www.blanktag.shop. That's my website. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook under blank_tag_. I am revamping my business because I was doing more individual and mentorship work. And now I'm moving over to the corporate sector. So I'm having some web designers and things go through my whole social media web to revamp everything to be more on the corporate sector level. So you can definitely find me at any of those. You can also email me at DesireeWilliams@blanktag.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching The Love of Business. Do stay tuned for more great shows at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media.
Thank you.
Thank you.